Man, I was stuck in traffic because I had a meeting over in Playa del Rey today, and I had another podcast interview. I was trying to do it like in the parking lot, and then I was rushing to that, and then I was running out of gas, right? And this is the first time this has ever happened because I had the indicator, and I'm like, oh, 9 miles, I got it. I know exactly where the gas station is. Get off the on ramp, 4 miles. Okay, I got it. But my credit card didn't work there, or like their credit card system. Oh crap! I got to drive to the next exit. I'm like 4 miles. I got it. Get to the gas station, and it's reading zero.
Oh my gosh. I hate those panic moments,
Yes.
which is why I try to never get to that point. It was like back in the day when you always like leave to go to catch flights and you leave like just with enough time. And then it's like stressful the whole time you're trying to get to the airport. Now I'm just like, I'd rather leave early and just not be in that high anxiety state.
Right.
Same with gas.
Yeah, gas. I typically will go. I push it, but this is
Yeah.
probably the furthest. I've never seen it say zero before.
Oh my gosh. That is wild. Oh,
So anyway, I made it to the meeting. Yay!
yay.
All right. What do you think? 5:03? Should we get started?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We'll throw the recording up for anyone who misses the first few minutes. All good.
Sure. I'm gonna share this video. Give me a sec here. I'm actually gonna share it to our page there. Actually, we got a bump there. There was a lot of people that joined our group within this last week. I did a podcast called Nurses to Riches. Wasn't a nurse, but I told them about my investing in real estate experience, and a lot of people, a lot of nurses, a lot of healthcare workers out there interested in investing in real estate. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, that video was so good. I love it. I don't really watch YouTube content ever, but then after you mentioned that when we were at the park the other day, I was like, oh, I gotta watch it, and it was really good. So well put together.
Yes.
Alex, you want to give an intro before I jump into the presentation because I kind of have mine weaved into it.
Perfect. Hey guys, how's everyone doing? A lot of familiar names here, but I'll go ahead and give a formal intro since we do have a lot of new members here. My name's Alex Sabio, married father of four, live here in Southern California. My W-2 job is a respiratory therapist. Been doing that 21 years now. Absolutely love it. My specialty is NICU, PICU. Been investing in real estate since the mid 2000s. Made a lot of mistakes along the way and eventually learned from it. Early 2020, we started investing in short-term rentals, and I found that niche was up my alley. So currently we have 6 short-term rentals, and we started a fund, and we just acquired our first hotel. That's a 76-unit hotel in Bentonville, Arkansas, and we're closing on a 9-unit here, maybe end of next month. So really excited about that. We're going to turn that into short-term rental / mid-term rental. So a lot of good things coming. Just keep following me on social media and keep coming to these meetups. I add a lot of value to our Facebook group, and pump out a lot of content on social media.
Yeah, awesome. So crazy. It's always so cool. Alex and I kind of just intro each other in the beginning of all these, and we're just so active and involved, and this community is so active and involved that it's crazy to see the progress we've made in the last couple of years, like even since we first met, like the things that we're doing now. It's so cool to have a network like this where you're sharing ideas and growing together. And yeah, I just love it. I'm kind of dive into that a little bit in my story here. So hi, everyone. I'm Savannah. I am a registered nurse. I went back to school pretty early and got my master's degree in nursing admin and leadership because I love process improvement. I loved patient care, but I always loved being in positions where I was supporting nurses even more. And so, yeah, went back to school, got that. My eyes were always set on a CNO position, chief nursing officer. I wanted to climb that corporate ladder and was really set out to do that. Worked the last 8 years in different leadership roles and positions in different departments. I've worked a lot of different specialties for sure. It's been really fun to kind of move around in the healthcare department in different positions. So I've done a lot of different things. At the beginning of 2020 though, I had my second daughter and was going back to a very demanding nursing admin job. And my daughter was 3 months old, and just kind of that heart aching feeling of a parent of being like, and me thinking, oh, I have to go back to my W-2 income. I'm very dependent on it. My husband and I needed that to live, and it just didn't feel like I had an option. And thinking my husband and I coming together and having a new family, we wanted to be super involved in our daughter's lives and go to all the things. And we felt like working a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job for the next, 40, 50 years wasn't really going to give us the flexibility that we wanted in life. And we were at that point investing very heavily in our retirement accounts. Both of us were putting about 20% of our paychecks toward it because we were like wanting to do that. We felt like smart with our money, but at that point it was like, okay, well, we can't touch that until we're 59 and a half. And we were like wanted something a little bit more than that. And so we ended up learning about real estate investing and got started in single family homes. And then after that, really moved into multifamily syndications for a lot of different reasons, but we really tapped out of our own capital in our lives. And we were sold on real estate investing and wanted to move forward in it. But we had pulled out a second mortgage to get started on those first single family homes. And then we're like, okay, how do we grow? How do we scale? How can we kind of keep growing a portfolio? And we realized, using other people's money through multifamily syndications was a great way to not only scale your real estate portfolio, but now build the wealth of other people. Like after we had done those first single family homes across the country, like some of our friends and family were like, oh, you're investing in real estate? That sounds interesting type thing. And opportunities to partner with them in deals was something that we loved the idea of. And so since then, we've scaled our portfolio. I've raised over $3.5 million, mostly from healthcare professionals, and coached a lot of healthcare professionals into their first deals. And then over the last year, I've been building a startup, a financial wellness platform for healthcare professionals. And honestly, it's my real estate career that's allowing me to sink mad money into my startup. But it really just shows that real estate investing has now given me the freedom to do what I want to do with my life, which is really get this information out to as many healthcare professionals as possible. Real estate has drastically changed my life. I've seen it, change Alex's life, other people in our group. Like it's such a cool thing to watch when other healthcare professionals learn about it because they are so smart and highly educated and working in such demanding jobs with potential high pay. And so they're in a position to really take this information and do a lot with it to grow their wealth in a way that they can live with it now. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I love throwing this picture on here because this is kind of where we like the exact time we were when we discovered real estate investing. So about 3 years ago is when like we literally learned about this stuff. And now just to see kind of what it's done in our life for the last 3 years is awesome. So super powerful stuff. I'm going to dive into capital raising more specifically because for me, when you move into partnership and general syndications, I'm going to kind of break that down first before I dive into the capital raising role. But real estate, as you kind of grow portfolios, it's natural for people to start forming partnerships and doing deals together. A few different ways that you can do that. You can do that in a joint venture where maybe it's a few different people and they want to split all the roles and responsibilities. Maybe some person's bringing the money, another person is actually going out and finding the deal. Different skill sets can complement partnerships, and that's coming together in the form of a joint venture. So a syndication is a little bit different in that you have general partners. So partners that are operating the deal, they're finding the deal, running the deal, raising the capital for the deal, managing really all aspects of it. And then LPs or limited partners are passive investors in these deals. So these are people that want to get involved in real estate investing, don't necessarily want to do all the work. They want to just give their money in the hands of skilled operators to make them grow wealth, people they trust, people who have a great track record. And that's really the partnership that's seen in real estate syndication. So there are two roles in syndications, the general partners and the limited partners. So those are the passive investors. So moving a little bit further into different roles and responsibilities in syndications. So general partners, these are the active investors. And here's a few different roles that you could bring to a general partnership. You sourcing the deal. This is finding it. Maybe you have good funnels, good relationships with brokers, wholesalers. You can source a deal. That's a way that you could earn a percentage of a general partnership. Balance sheet guarantors. So this could be someone who has the net worth liquidity to sign on as a loan. So something my husband and I faced moving into this space at a younger age where we didn't have the net worth and liquidity to be signing for $4 million properties. We had to bring in balance sheet guarantors in this space industry. It's called KPs or key principals. They can come in and sign on a loan. So that's a role that could earn you a percentage of a general partnership. Risk capital, so this is the capital that's used for like an earnest money deposit, money that you're placing to hold a loan while you're doing the due diligence and inspections, making sure everything's okay with the deal before you move forward. Sellers have the buyers put down an earnest money deposit usually to kind of like hold that space. So that's considered risk capital, money that's spent on the inspection. So say you spend like $3,000 on the inspection and travel over there and the deal falls through, you technically are in a position where you're not going to get that money back. That's risk capital. So there's ways that you, if you're willing to put up that risk capital in a general partnership, that could earn you a percentage in the deal. Asset management. So these are the people that are managing the asset throughout the lifetime of the investment. So people, a property manager, people that are overseeing it. So this is kind of the day-to-day that earns a percentage. Capital raisers. So these are the people bringing capital to the deal, whether that's through different funds, relationships. There's different ways that people are bringing capital to deals, but yeah, that can earn you a percentage into the general partnership. And then investor relations, that usually is combined with capital raisers. So usually the people that bring in capital, say to another person's deal, you're still kind of in charge of that communication piece and that overflow of what's communicated about the deal going on. I've seen different operators do it differently in the space in terms of partnerships and how that works, but that's just kind of another extra piece of that general partnership role. And then the limited partners, so these are the passive investors in the deal. In syndications, they earn a small percentage of a large deal, usually through a syndication. So how this usually works is these properties are bought in the form of an LLC, and then the operating agreement deems that the limited partners in the deal, based on how much money they're contributing to it, they earn a percentage of that LLC. So passive investors are part owners of these buildings, which is super cool way, you know, legally to look at it, even as a passive investor, like you're owning apartment buildings. It's super great. So great ways to receive passive returns in real estate in the limited partner role. There's plenty of people that I know in this space who are making money actively in real estate, whether it be through short-term rentals or they're general partners on deals. They are also invested in other syndications as limited partners, just because it's another great way to diversify and build wealth. And then the biggest priority for the limited partner is to vet out the general partner or the sponsorship team. So that's really, really the biggest role as a LP coming into these deals, is you kind of doing your homework on the general partnership team. Are they people that you trust? Is their track record good? What kind of deals are they looking at? What type of returns are they projecting? So yeah, that's kind of the biggest piece there.
So Savannah, like a lot of us are short-term rental heavy in our group, and I just want to bring this up because a lot of us, where it says general partner, you see all those roles. We are wearing all of those hats when we're running a short-term rental portfolio, right? And you don't realize how much work you're really putting into it. And some of these you might not be good at, like that is not your strong suit. So one of the questions I got was, what's the difference between being a hotel owner and a short-term rental operator? You would think it's a lot more work, but I told him, I said, I'm not doing anything because all I did was really capital raise and investor relations. I'm not dealing with any of the guests because that's not my strong suit. The sourcing deals, there's another team member there that is an absolute rock stars. So when you guys bring your own strengths, you can actually be a lot stronger that way versus someone trying to do all of the work all themselves. You could definitely do it, but I think you're going to grow much faster if you like join a team where everyone has their specific roles. So
yeah, definitely. You just, so much of what you said comes with wanting to scale a portfolio, which a lot of people, and especially in the short-term rental space, Alex included, has attested to this, like getting to a point where you're kind of tapped out on how much you can do for that, and wanting to scale your portfolio, whether it be through, you know, multifamily, commercial, these syndications is a huge route to that. And like you said, there's so many different ways that you can contribute. I mean, as a real estate owner, you'd be surprised how much of this stuff you could do or contribute. You know, even the risk capital, if you're in a position where you can put up $100,000 in an operating team that needs that upfront cash, a lot of them do, that, and you trust them, that's a great way to earn your way into a general partnership. So yeah, lots of different opportunities here to get involved.
and then the limited partner, I mean, people shit on it because it's making smaller percentage, but I think in the end, that's where we all want to be, right?
Mhm.
Where we just put the money in, we don't do any of the work, someone does it all, and we just get checks in the mail. So, and if
Yes.
you find a great operator like Savannah, she could probably double your money in a short amount of time. I just keep doubling it over and over again if I could.
Yes, yes. It is a great way to get in investing. So I broke it down. I took it kind of one step further because I've noticed when I've done some of these webinars in the past that I have a lot of people who are wanting to kind of get involved and not knowing kind of what percentage it earns you of a deal, and that it's kind of unclear in this space. So I just like to get into the deep nitty gritty of the structure. But so balance sheet guarantor, this role that I was talking about before, this is kind of what percentage you can expect it earning in a general partnership team. And I want to say that the general partnership, there's a lot of percentages when you get involved in syndications. So the LLC that I was talking about before that owns ownership of that building, it's usually broken down into an 80-20 split or a 70-30 split, meaning that the limited partners in the deal or the passive investors, they're owning majority ownership, so 70 to 80% of it. And the general partnership team usually earns about 20 to 30% of that entire deal. So when I'm saying these percentages right here, these are percentages of that 20%. So it ends up being a smaller portion of the deal. But this is kind of what you can expect range wise. Asset management, 20 to 30%, pretty active role. These are kind of some strong skill sets that I set down next to each different role. Like I mentioned with the balance sheet guarantor, just being able to have that net worth liquidity if you're in a position. That's kind of end goal too. Alex and I have talked about this, being in a position where you have the net worth liquidity way far in advance in your real estate career, and then you see other people out there doing deals and they need more experienced operators with higher net worth liquidity to sign on deals. You can be in that position where it's like you're almost kind of giving back. I feel like that's role is goals for me for sure. But asset management, pretty active role in my partnerships in my real estate business. My husband really manages that piece of the business. It stresses me out, man, way too much. Whenever I hear him kind of talk about the calls that he's having with people, it makes my heart start racing. And I realized that pretty early into my real estate investing career. I thought I wanted to do asset management, and it took a few phone calls with contractors, and I was just like, oh hell no, this is not for me. So I moved into more to the capital raiser. So that's kind of my role in general partnerships, is raising the capital. So this is through networking and marketing efforts, relationship building, and it'll earn you about 30 to 50% depending. Risk capital, this is just putting up that upfront cost, like I mentioned, 10 to 15%, and then sourcing a deal, finding a deal. Everyone knows how good it is to find great, or hard it is to find great deals. So being a good deal finder can earn you a good percentage of these deals. Okay, so that's enough of the kind of overview of how these are broken down. I just feel super important to kind of premise the capital raising aspect of it. So I'm coming into the capital raising space, and I'm going to share kind of a lot of my experience with this stuff. But I came into the capital raising space not intentionally. When my husband and I discovered real estate syndications and how we could build our real estate portfolio this way, we were both so adverse to the sales, marketing, brand building, being the face of a company type thing. Like we had, I feel like, almost a very private life, and didn't like we weren't even so we didn't like that piece of it. But when it came to, okay, this is how we're gonna build a business, it was like, okay, this is what we need to do. How can we do it in the best way possible, the most genuine way possible? And so for me, it's always about developing trust. Capital raisers will tell you that the biggest hurdle to investors giving their money over to you is always trust. So if you can cater to an avatar or a persona that you kind of have the built-in trust with, that's a plus. So for me, I've obviously done that in the healthcare space with nurses because I'm a nurse. And for me, this is the best way to kind of share my story through the lens with like people I'm with all the time and people I really care about. Nurses, like I just have such a big heart for what they do in the hospital, and I just want them to have all the resources they can to build wealth. And so that to me is such a passion and a why that it gives me motivation to go out and raise capital. More than just me scaling my portfolio and building wealth, it's about building the wealth for other people now. And I think if you can turn that on as a capital raiser, it'll give you the ability to push further. So for me, initially getting started, it was sharing my story. You have to get comfortable with being in front of the camera. For me, this was super hard. I am very introverted, and I before I started going on podcasts, I'm not kidding. I made my husband practice questions in the car with me on like a 4-hour car ride trip because I was so nervous of like how to answer real estate questions. Like I was a newbie. I had just only done one deal and I was out here going to go start capital raising. So for me, it was just like I could only share from my experience. And it's always been so transparent in a way of like, I'm just starting off with this. I'm a new nurse. Like I'm just starting in real estate. I don't have any background in this. This is me kind of like sharing my story. And I do that mostly through social media. And that's really how I've built my personal brand, is just kind of giving people an inside look at what it's like just building this business from scratch, being a nurse, being a mom, doing it with my husband, like just, yeah, sharing my story. So anyone going out there wanting to raise capital, there is a lot to be said about building a personal brand. Any capital raiser will tell you that that is really instrumental. Someone like Brandon Turner is an amazing example. I was following along in his journey beginning of 2020 before he even started his capital. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it. Capital firm. Open Door, that's it. And it's so crazy to see the power of, he had such a following and such a personal image that when he flipped on the switch of being a capital raiser, he was able to raise millions and millions of dollars fairly quickly. For me, when I went out to raise for my first real estate deal and I hit up my friends and family, my inner circle was about 20, 30 people, like I didn't get a response. Like my inner circle wasn't full of wealthy people. And it was a little bit discouraging, honestly, to be in a space. I went through a formal coaching program to learn how to do syndication deals with Michael Blanc. And in his program, I was working alongside other investors who were coming in it. And this guy, he was in the tech industry, and all his net worth and his inner circle was full of very wealthy people. He just knew tons of wealthy. His family was wealthy. He came from a lot of money. And so when he set out to do his first deal, he was able to raise millions of dollars easily. And it can be hard if you're coming in this space and you don't have that background. And so I just like to highlight that networking in the right circles is super important. Alex and I were literally just talking about this a couple of weeks ago when we were filming content, that like just forcing yourself to go to a country club, like where people are playing golf or talking business, different places like that in your community, those are the type of circles is where you start networking with people who are interested in these type of investings, deals and opportunities, who have the money that they're just sitting on looking to put somewhere. They've been waiting for someone like you to come through and show them these amazing real estate opportunities. It's actually super crazy what I'm doing with my startup company. I'm out talking to venture capitalists about trying to raise money for that. And I've mentioned my real estate background to a few of them. And now I ironically have some of them investing in my real estate deals, which is funny to see. It's just, more of a stable investment than startups. But anyways, you'll never know what type of investors you can attract just by kind of networking in those right circles. So super important. And then creating a platform. So you got to have something, whether where is your avatar hanging out? Are you going to be hanging, is your avatar, for me, nurses, a lot of them are on Instagram where I'm connecting with them. So it's building this platform, this brand. There are some people are Facebook, maybe it's marketing to Facebook groups. That's where your clientele or avatar is hanging out. There's a lot of different ways that you can get in front of them, and it's being a little bit strategic and narrowing down who you're actually going to be targeting for raising capital. The more that you can do that and get clear on kind of like your avatar, the easier it is to kind of create those funnels and the platform. So moving into funnels. So this is kind of the first step when raising capital, is creating a funnel of capital coming in and making it kind of automated, using technology to help you here. What at this point, what you're trying to do is collect emails. That's big for marketing purposes. pushing this on social media is applicable as well if you have a lead magnet over there. But for some people, it could be an ebook, a calculator, an infographic, an article, maybe an interactive blog. For me personally, on my website, I have a bunch of different downloads. I have different worksheets that people can fill in, and you can create this stuff on Canva like super easily. Just something that kind of speaks to your avatar, something they'd like for me, for nurses, it's like a wellness checkoff list with like get your health score type thing, and then they download it, and then I'm collecting their emails and kind of marketing stuff to them. So
who created your website, Savannah? If somebody wants to go that route and say, hey, I want to put a website together and put a lead magnet, but I have no idea.
Yes, I can give you so many referrals and recommendations for this. My website guy is amazing. First up, my sister built my net worth nurse website. She literally taught herself code so that she could help me build this website when I first started Net Worth Nurse and was like struggling. But I've since found a guy from Fiverr in Bangladesh that I've been working with over the last couple of years. He built the website for my startup company, investhealth.com. It's beautiful. I love it. So put a lot of work into that. He does amazing, great edits, super affordable. So yeah, I can get some contacts there for sure.
I love it.
Canva is also really cool. And then kind of moving into the CRM. So this is something, it's a customer relations management. And it stands, and so different ones could be like SurveyMonkey, ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, Salesforce, Pipedrive. So these are the tools that you're using to keep track of your investors in a communication tool. What's actually super cool is that the investor portals, which I'll jump to, some examples of investor portals. Cashflow portal is amazing. Their founder, Perry Zhang, is off the hook smart. So they're doing really cool things with that app. And a lot of these portals now have CRMs kind of built into them. So InvestNext, they're another great one, so that you can kind of communicate to your investors once they get in there. But your goal is, especially if you're doing 506B filings, which means you're raising capital for unaccredited investors, you want to make sure that you're putting them into some sort of CRM so that you can be documenting, okay, when is the last time you've talked to them, or when did you make initial contact for them? Because something that you'll have to make note of if you're out raising capital is that there's a lot of legalities around it. And if you're going to be raising capital to unaccredited investors who are people who are making under 200,000 a year, or 300,000 joint with partner, or have $1 million net worth liquidity, those are the cutoffs between unaccredited investor and an accredited investor. And just kind of how these legalities work, what the SEC did is they put these parameters in place because financial people were out there scamming regular individuals who don't have a lot of net worth and liquidity. So these are kind of put in place to prevent like scams like that. So the SEC just wants to see that you actually have a pre-existing relationship with these people before you start capital raising from them. So a pre-existing relationship really isn't defined in any crazy way. There's no like amount of calls or how much time you need to know them beforehand. It's a little vague, but for your purposes as a capital raiser, you want to make sure you're doing your documentation to show, okay, when was your first touch point with these investors, hopping on a call with them. So yeah, moving into a scheduling tool. So that's the next step, is getting on the phone with these people, understanding where they're at with their investments, what are they investing in now. Kind of how I roll through these conversations is, so my lead magnet and everything on my site is pushing people to book a call with me. Hey, if you want to learn how to passively invest, end up booking a call. Like at whatever my marketing is doing, I'm driving them to hop on a phone call with me because I need to do that to meet SEC guidelines. So then the scheduling tool is super important. I use Calendly. I could not function without it. Seriously, it runs so much of my calendar and just talking to people. But a lot of people I've heard Google is a new one that people are kind of using. Monday, Simply Book. There's a lot of different other ones out there that you could use. But you want to make sure you have a good scheduling tool that can get these calls booked on your schedule.
You talked a little bit about the 506B and 506C, and I think that's really important because if someone's going to want to raise capital, just be wary about posting stuff on social media right off the bat, because then you could violate some SEC guidelines there.
Yeah, it's super important stuff to learn about if you're unfamiliar with it. For me, it was watching a few YouTube videos, and then every lawyer I get on the phone with and do a deal with, I always have them run through what their, like understanding of unaccredited or your pre-existing relationship is with the clients. Like I always ask my lawyers, like, what do you think is a deemable pre-existing relationship? Because they all say something a little bit different,
Mhm.
kind of what their ideas of that. And so then it's kind of just bringing to light everyone's comfort level with like, okay, what is this? What are we doing with this? So the legalities is something you do have to learn when you start raising capital, and it can be pretty foreign. But if you work with a good syndication attorney, and there's many of them out there, they can help explain this to you if it's your first time rolling through it. Um, and then, yeah, so then once you get on the phone call with them, so how I kind of direct these conversations when I hop on the phone with people is, hey, maybe tell me a little bit about yourself, how you found my information, and what questions you have for me. And then it opens up the conversation. Most of my people are nurses, so I love kind of hearing like what they're doing in the specialty, or other healthcare professionals too. So love hearing about that. You got to know what city they're in for legality purposes. So you got to always make sure you're touching base with that on the phone call. You kind of want to have an idea of what their investing background is. So are they investing with their employer? Do they have an IRA account? Do they have any student loan debt? Do they own their primary residence? And this is kind of, for some people, personal information. I have these conversations with so many people, and I feel like in this investing community, we're also open about numbers, that it can be very easy to have these conversations. But honestly, most of these conversations with some of your investors might be a little guarded. So for me, I kind of just try and like shatter some of that stigma right away, and just saying like, hey, I know it can be kind of uncomfortable to talk about some of this stuff, but it gives me a better idea to see whether or not this investment would be right for you, because that is truly what you're trying to determine at that point. And some people, it's super cool. They get on the phone and they're just like super open. They're like, oh, I invest in this and I invest in that. And then people, who are already invested in syndications, maybe you don't need to run through the whole spiel with them of how they work. For me, a good chunk of my investors are coming into real estate syndications and having no idea what they are. And so I'm having to explain kind of from step 1 to 10, the whole high level view process of how they work. And then once I do that, I open it to questions and I start diving in to further questions. So that's kind of how you create a funnel for raising capital. Once you do that, you got to bring deals to your investors, right? So get clear on the returns. What type of returns are your investors looking for? Are they looking for equity multiple? Are they looking for ROI, or return on investment? Are they looking for cash on cash, like either through a preferred return or just not? AAR, like the average annualized return. This is the one that you compare to the stock market. So that's always a big selling point for me when I'm hopping on calls with these investors, is like, hey, our deals are performing at anywhere between 15 to 20% average annualized return. And the stock market historically has done like 6%. So this is a great way that you could build wealth even faster and diversify it. And so that's always a huge talking point for me when I present my deals to investors.
Write that down, everybody. What you just said. Very
And then,
easy.
and another thing I always say on every single call is, hey, we're looking for deals in the 4 to 7 years. We're looking to double your money. So we're looking for 100% return on your investment. So if you're investing $50,000 in one of our deals, we're going to get you that $50,000 back, plus another $50,000 on top of that throughout the lifetime of the investment. And that'll be seen in quarterly distributions. I say that exact phrase every single call with investors. It kind of gets scripted at the point. I should maybe make another video where I just do like my 10-minute spiel of these calls, because it gets really repetitive after a while, but I'll spare you guys on this Zoom meetup. So diving into the returns is always big, especially on your initial call. You want to understand their understanding of these terms. Some of your investors won't even understand this. And so for me, I created a blog on my website with like understanding basic real estate investment returns. So if I get on a call with an investor who doesn't even understand this, instead of spending my whole call going over this, I say, hey, after we get off the call, I'm going to send you this blog on my website that goes over deeper into investor returns, and knowing that my relationship with them is going to involve a few more steps before in education before I get them in a deal. It'll probably be another follow-up call with like the actual numbers inside of a deal. In addition to understanding your returns, building out your team is big. So in this space, kind of like I mentioned in the earlier slides, there's a lot of different moving pieces. And so you're going to be working with other people in some sort of capacity. And so working with people you trust. I've seen a lot of people come in new to the space and build partnerships right off the bat with some of the first people they're meeting. And then I hear kind of starting to hear some horror stories years later down the road that, some of these partnerships aren't working out so well. And you have to take into consideration some of these deals, 7 years, that's maybe longer than some marriages, right? So you're with these people, working with them for a long time. So it's important to work and build out your team. And so for me, if I'm thinking about potentially partnering with people, it's getting on a couple of calls, Zoom calls, and then working through like some numbers or some scenarios together and seeing how each other responds to different things that are coming up. How do you move and groove together? That's just kind of the insights of how partnerships work. But I just wanted to point out the focus there. And then deal frequency. So I always give my investors a heads up of how many deals we're expecting to do in a year. So when we first started out, we were doing 2 to 3 a year. Now that my husband is full-time in the real estate business, yay, we're hoping to kind of scale our portfolio a little bit more. So I'm telling investors anywhere between 4 to 5. We'll kind of see what happens with the market. It's been a little bit slow over the last 6 to 9 months for us at least, but we're starting to see a lot more movement now. And so, yeah, you'll want to give your investors a heads up of just kind of how many deals they can expect. So once you get them into your portal, you'll be communicating via that. Like when you get a new deal, then they'll kind of be able to know when to expect next communications with you. And with this type of stuff, communication is always key, especially people in the healthcare field, right? Like how much better do your patients feel when you overly communicate stuff to them as opposed to like when you just walk right in and start doing stuff in the room and they're like, wait, what are you doing? Are you giving me meds? Slow down and that type of stuff. So communication is always super big with your investors and partners alike. And then,
So
yeah.
You mentioned a portal. I mean, a lot of us here are getting started right off the bat. I mean, is that something we invest in right away, or do we just go off a spreadsheet or something like that? I mean, do you recommend just diving in and investing the money into a portal like that? Like, let's say InvestNext or even MailChimp, right?
Yes, that is such a good question and something that is worth asking if you're out there having these questions for sure. And I'm sure you'll probably get 100 different answers, but I can speak to my experience. So I did my first 3 raises without a portal, and what that looks like is you're manually collecting all the signatures, you're facilitating all the communication. It could be via text, email, it's now all in different spots. When you're using a portal, all the legal documents are in the same spot. The streamline for how things are communicated and where they are in the investment process of like, okay, you've showed them the deal, they put in a soft commit, they've signed the paperwork, now they've gotten the wire instructions. Okay, they've wired the money. Like the portals make all of that move seamlessly. When you don't have a portal, you are doing all that. And I've done it and it's painful. But for me, I started off my first deal, I only had 4 investors. So it was doable. For my second deal, I think I got like 13 investors. So still kind of doable at that point. But then when you start scaling, you really do need to leverage technology. It makes things so much easier. And a lot of them go on sliding scales. So they'll start with like the newer investors. The subscription costs more based on your volume. So how much assets under management, usually in the ones that I've seen, they'll do your price on a sliding scale based on how much assets under management you as an operator have under operating in that portal. So, and
the other thing too, like it'll calculate the investor returns, right? I mean, with us, like we have a complicated waterfall, and to do math over so many investors, like if someone's investing $50,000, their pref is this, and then what their returns are. If they're investing $150,000 or $200,000, there's no way I'm going to be able to calculate any of that. I mean, I would probably make mistakes, whereas the InvestNext will calculate all of that for you. So, and it's easy for them to look up.
Yeah, exactly. Investors kind of like having the portal, like a place they can log in and see everything and documents and signatures and communications. I think as an investor, I would like that. I'm not a passive investor in any other deals yet, but it just seems like investors prefer that type of communication. But yes, you can get by without it on your first few raises if you need to. I think you can. Okay, and then delivering to your investors. So reputation is everything, right? So for me, I was terrified to start raising capital initially because I was like, oh my God, I just couldn't imagine the pressure of having to, like, what if being in a position to lose people's money? Like, I just felt like the pressure was going to be too much for my heart to bear. But there is so much risk that you can mitigate in real estate by underwriting by being a good underwriter. You look at market trends, you look at population trends, you look at the numbers in the building. How has it been operating for the last 3 years? Why is that? To dive deep into the numbers to really understand how it's functioning. It's talking to lenders and being able to get really good lending deals and financing terms and being able to make it work strategically. So there's a lot of ways that you can mitigate risk. And something that I did, I read a lot, but Raising Private Capital by Matt Faircloth. So great. It's a great book for if you're starting out raising capital, and it's super powerful because in that book, he shares this story where he had just started raising capital, was raising a decent amount, and he was in a position where the building like suffered something unexpectedly, and he was going to lose his investors hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he ended up coming back with his general partnership team, and we're like, how can we make it right? Like, it's them sacrificing their position in the deal to make their investors whole. And I didn't realize that concept when I had started raising capital. And I was like, oh, there's ways that you make it right, as a capital raiser in this industry. And I think if you function at that level, knowing that, your reputation is everything in this space, and the relationships that you have with investors are like sacred. So for me, I always stress that. And then also underwriting conservatively. I have been hearing lately, I did a podcast today and was talking to another operator for some time about some big operators in the space that are losing their investors' money right now, that they're not sending out quarterly disbursements. And it was kind of shocking to hear that, but he said he knew someone who's a passive investor in like 24 deals and not one of them's paying out returns right now. I felt like that was crazy. I find that, I don't know, but I actually heard it from another nurse too, that she was losing money. They did a capital call on one of her deals she was in. And for us personally in our deals, we have always done fixed lending terms. So for the people who a couple years ago got a really great interest rate, and now they're at a quarter arm and they're at a 6% interest rate, the longer into their lending terms, sometimes lenders will do that flexible rate. And so now they're like negatively cash flowing on these buildings and not able to function. And it's just some of these value add operators who are thinking, I'm going to go in there quickly, turn things, sell it. And then this happens, it catches a lot of people off guard. So underwriting conservatively, there's ways that you can work your numbers. Just be aware, and then be aware of who you partner with.
Savannah, what's a capital call for people that don't know?
Yeah, so a capital call is if you're in a passive investment and the operators get the deal to where they need more money, they're calling for capital. They're literally calling to their passive investors to give them more capital to make the deal run. That they're in a place where they need money to keep themselves alive, type thing. So that's a capital call.
So let's say someone invested $50,000 and that operator says, "Hey guys, we're about to foreclose unless you want to invest $20,000 more," or something like that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're basically asking for more capital.
Yeah.
And then just want to highlight that a rising tide lifts all boats. I think if you come at capital raising with and I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, of just the intent to build the wealth of those around you, that it can be such a powerful tool to scale your real estate portfolio and build wealth for those around you. A lot of us are here because we've seen how powerful real estate investing has been in our lives, and we know how cool it is, and that not a lot of people know about this still, right? And so about when you're capital raising, there's different ways that you want to communicate this stuff to people. And I think just the more genuine you can do that, and with the goal for everyone else to succeed, the better it is. So that is the end of my presentation. I can be contacted pretty much on all social media platforms. Follow along. I share my journey still, even a few years in. I post on there every day, pretty consistent. So just sharing kind of what we're doing and building our real estate portfolios, and then also with my startup, Invest Health. And I love connecting with other investors and healthcare professionals. So if you're interested, or I definitely want to open it up for questions. So if anyone has any questions about anything, I'd love to dive in.
Savannah, how important was the brand? I see your brand everywhere, right? And I mean, did you really think that through early on, like we got to get this brand right off the bat?
Yeah, I am so glad you brought that up. I meant to touch on that in my PowerPoint and that's why I literally put this background up. I haven't been doing it lately on our calls, but the brand is so important. And that is a part of going out and sharing your story. Like for me, when I started doing podcasts, like seeing the graphics and images on, um, Instagram and the internet, it would like make me cringe. Like even now I'm like, oh man, seeing the face and the picture over and over, but it is sticky. It is so sticky that I can't tell you. I pushed it out when this podcast tour that I kind of went on when I first started my brand, I made it a goal to go on 100 podcasts in a year. It was the most powerful thing I have done to grow my brand. I had my picture, the one I just showed with my hands on my hip like this and my scrubs, and this logo on everything. And I can't tell you how many people would come up to me at conferences and be like, oh yeah, and then they would do like that little pose with me on my hips, like, oh, I didn't recognize you because you're not in scrubs. And it's cringy. Yes. If that's not you to be in that place, but it is so worth it to create that stickiness.
I get a lot of students, they don't know their brand, and I say, just be yourself, man.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised how many people will relate with you. Like, let's say if you're a corporate exec, and I'm like, dude, just be corporate execs investing in real estate. You'd be surprised because there's this A to B connection, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure many nurses came up to you like, oh my God, your story resonates with me because I'm a nurse too, right?
That's seriously how the majority of my investor calls start. And I love it. Like, I absolutely love it. Like, the biggest reason I'm doing this, like anytime I get a woman and a nurse on a call, I'm like, this is it. Like, I am just sharing this information with people is really what brings me so much joy. And so when you can do that, when you're connecting with the people, and I've seen people do it with their churches, like some people go out and literally like are so involved. I work with someone who has such a great relationship with his entire church that he brings in a lot of capital from his church. I've had firefighters do it. I've seen vets. I have a friend who's a vet in LA who has a podcast, Know Your Why, and he's starting a capital raise to the vet community. There's when you can kind of niche down and talk to people in a relatable way, they feel that. Like a lot of people, when they get on the call with me, they're like, yeah, I ended up going with you over someone else because I just felt like you were a little bit more relatable. So like I always make it a point when I come on and speak to anyone, I just share my personal stories and it resonates with people.
What's one mistake you've made and looking back at it now that you wish you could probably go back and say, you know what, I wish if I did this different, it'd probably work out differently.
Oh man. Probably a lot of different things. There's like a cost opportunity for so many things. Like when I was doing 100 podcasts, I'm like, man, what if I would have started my own podcast? Maybe
Mhm.
that would have like been
Yeah.
taking me to the next level if it was to help nurses and tapped into that market instead of me. But I was working full time and I had 2 young kids at home. And so for me, the lazy way was to guest on other people's podcasts because then they're making all the marketing material for me and I just have to post it on my account. Like all I had to do was hop on a call. And so for me, that was like less work at the time. And so that was kind of hacking my way through it. But I mean, even now, like I'm building a startup and I've hit the point I've spent $80,000 in my startup. And looking at that number gives my heart like a little bit of a panic, right? And I'm like, man, if I would have spent that 80K in a real estate deal, like where would that lead me to now, instead of this startup? But for me, it's like, that's my passion. Like that's my joy. And thank God real estate has given me enough capital in my life to fund my ability to kind of live out that dream. But it's always an opportunity cost. I feel like everything. That's a hard question.
What about the social media aspect of it? Because for those of you that don't know, like Savannah and I use the same virtual assistant for our social media. I mean, do you, and I miss this because I had two social media interns 3 years ago when I first started short-term rentals, and I had no idea what to do with them.
Right.
Like they were asking for content, like, can you film doing this? And I'm like, I'm not dancing, man. I don't care what you say. I'm not going to be there dancing. But I didn't know any better. I had
Mhm.
no clue. And now if you guys watch me, I'm pumping videos and I wish I would have done it like when I first started. And it's awkward at first, right?
So awkward. That's why I always stress that in all these meetups about capital raising. It is very out of the comfort zone. But a lot of people think exactly what you thought, Alex, which is I don't know how to do this. But and that can stop so many people from even getting started. But you just trial and error, like trial and error. Everything in this space is just, especially with social media, is a trial and error. I've done
Yeah.
reels, I've done the pointing ones, I've done the dancing
Yeah.
ones, I've done the ones where you stand in front with the mic. I mean, I've done interviews. Like it's all trial and error for me. And for me,
Yeah.
it's like, what gets the biggest response? What do your viewers like? What does your persona like to see? Do they like to see tips and tricks? Do they like to see you dancing and bouncing around? Like, do they like to see, I mean, the one where I'm in scrubs doing funny like reels in the medical space, like those always hit hard. For me, I don't necessarily love doing them because I feel so awkward, but like they get the biggest response. And for me, I started my social media like during the COVID when everyone was on their phone. And I've definitely seen a huge drop in engagement over the last like 6, 9, 12 months, as opposed to how it was in 2020, 21. The engagement was huge. I mean, I grew like 10,000 followers in a short span of time just because it was during the pandemic and everyone was on their phone. So you got to get creative, always be flexible because things, especially in social media, trends change so quickly.
Yes.
But the most important thing is to just be consistent. For me, it's like I post something every single day. I've posted something every single day for the last 3 years. Even when I don't want to, I am on there posting because I mean, that's just what you got to do. Consistency.
It's really just getting your face out there. And the thing is, sometimes I obsess. I'm like, this reel is gonna hit, and then I post something and it gets 200 views. And it's funny because I just posted a video saying guests are gonna masturbate in your Airbnb, and it got 600,000 views.
Right.
It's so frustrating. You have like amazing tips on saving money on taxes, scaling a real estate portfolio, and you talk about people masturbating and it goes viral.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, know where your people are at, talk to them, meet them where they're at.
But yeah, I mean, I know I've posted on social, and I've gotten a couple people invest in my deals just because, hey, you know what? I trust you and you're likable, right? That's the one trait I still have, is that just by being myself is the one thing people still say is that you're likable. Maybe not now because the Lakers are playing and I keep posting stuff about the Lakers, and some people in across the country don't like that stuff. You know, I'm just being myself. I'm sorry. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Any other?
yeah, someone was asking about the portal. Maybe what will or the portal. How hard was it to set one up?
Super easy. These people make it really white glove for you. Cashflow portal, Perry Zing's team. I mean, they're doing all the upfront work to. I'm transitioning from portals right now, and they're doing all the upfront work on it. They make it very seamless.
Josh was asking, like right now he's pretty much raising money from his inner circle. How does he find more investors? Do you have any tips for him?
Yeah, start creating that brand, speaking out, trying to see if there are other communities that you can dive into. Like Alex and I were talking country clubs. Like my husband and I just moved to a new neighborhood, and we're actually going to become members of the country club and just being in that network of people. Yes, we don't play golf. My husband might learn how, but regardless, we're like, this is probably the network of people. Just talk about it all the time. Now that my kids are in school with people and I'm like talking about it with other parents, like I'm piquing interest there. I've had patients, family members invest with me because I was taking such good care of like someone's mom, and then started chatting. He was like a YouTube star type thing with RVs. And I was like, telling him about my things, and he ended up investing in my deal just because he, saw how I was kind of taking care of his mom and stuff. And so you never know just like what situations talking about it will do.
Yes, that's true. Talk to everyone. I was talking to my Uber driver.
Yep.
You never really know. And I don't assume anything. I always just talk to everyone, and who knows, because they might share your information with someone else. So
yeah. Sorry, I'm just now looking at these chats. It's 6. I know. So someone wanted to see my website guy. I will share it when I upload this on YouTube. I'm going to put it in the comments so that his link will be in there. He's amazing, does great work. And then, I can intro via email if that's easier as well. So anyways, it's 6. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. Like I said, if you have any questions, it's a lot of info all at once. And if you're getting started, a lot of things can be intimidating, but reach out. I've been there. Alex is starting to raise capital too. Learn from us. We love talking and chatting with people.
One last thing someone said, do you compensate anyone that brings you more investors?
So legality, you can't really do that. You have to have a role on a general partnership team to be bringing investors like that. There's a lot of legalities around that. So technically not really legal.
Right. Savannah, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, Net Worth Nurse on my website, social medias, Savannah at thenetworthnurse.com. You can reach me at any of those. Would love to chat real estate.
All right. I think we're going to end the meeting there, 6 o'clock on the dot. Got to catch the Laker game because they are going to close it out, right, Lenny? I know Lenny's here. Philly's going to close it. It might be a Philly versus Lakers in the finals. I'm actually hoping for that. So anyway, guys, thank you so much, Savannah. Love the topic. We'll get this video out on YouTube and share it all over social media if you guys want to rewatch it or share it with anyone else.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Hey, guys. Bye.